Hello and welcome to Mountain Association. This is a quick tutorial of how to use our new Salesforce portal as a client or applicant. Now, I want to go ahead and show several pieces of this portal to you. We'll start with the application, and then we'll move forward looking at what it's like to actually use the portal. So here we are at the application phase. We're going to go ahead and type in what type of business we are, who we are. If you are an owner, you'll go ahead and click that. If you're an authorized representative, it'll have very similar information, a few different questions later. If you're neither, obviously you can't proceed. But I did want to point out, if you're a nonprofit, that you get some variation with the questions as well, especially when you get into details of who owns the business or who represents the business, what your role is, etc. But for now, we're going to say for-profit, we'll say owner, and we're going to make up some names. Some roles. Actually, I'm going to put my own number in there. That way we don't send emails or phone text messages to other people. So I'll go ahead and put those in. All right. So the type of what kind of messages we would like to receive, contacts we would like to receive, and then the name of our business. This business is actually already in our system, but I'm going to go ahead and enter that information in here. Okay, next page. Then I'm going to take a look and fill out what I can from this page here about my business information. Some of these fields are required. And once we've completed those, we'll go ahead and move on to choosing our type of business support needed. Here we're able to say how much we can contribute to the project. Mountain Association typically tries to split this at a quarter of the cost, but you don't know what that is on the front end. So take a look at your budget and see what you're able to contribute. In this case, I'm going to say $1,000. Here we had chosen business owners. We're going to enter a little bit of that. I'm going to say I'm 100% business owner with a household income of $50,000 and 3 people living in the home. Say we were born in 1900, gender, etc., etc. So we'll fill out this identifying information if we desire to. You can always skip it, as well as saying if there are any additional owners. And if there are additional owners, you'll be asked for contact information so that they can also fill out some data about the business. That way we get data from each owner. Actually, I'm going to back up here. Say no. Fill in some of these. All right, let's go ahead. We'll subscribe to the newsletter, and we will answer some specific questions about our business here and our relationship to Mountain Association's board. Go ahead and type in our signature. And if we're interested in any other services. We'll go ahead and hit submit. Okay, and that's done. So give me a minute and I will pop back in with an actual portal for this project for us to use. Now that we've applied for consulting services through the business support program at Mountain Association, we wait for approval. It has to go through an approval process internally at Mountain Association. And if we're approved, we get an email like this. So it says you've been invited to the business support portal. So we've got an account active and waiting for us. We'll go ahead and click here to log in. And then it'll populate with your username, and it'll prompt you, if it's your first time, it'll prompt you to go ahead and set up a password. If you don't have a password or have trouble getting in, you can go ahead and click forgot your password and reset it that way. Okay, now we're going ahead and we're logging in, seeing the client portal from our perspective. And if we're logging in here for the first time, or especially for a project for the first time, we'll see some unique tasks to complete at the beginning. So, but just to orient you, you've got your home, resources, and invoices tabs up here. You've got a little drop down here that doesn't do a whole lot. We've kept this thing simple on purpose to try to get rid of clutter and make sure that we're staying on track on task and that it's clear what the next steps are. You can see that if you have multiple projects down here, you can click in to multiple projects. It's unlikely for a client, but the capability is there. In this case, we just have the one, and if we click into that project, it'll show us the same exact tasks that are here. And here we are. These are the tasks that are unique to this project. We know we need to first step accept our agreement and liability release. So review this document. I'm going to go through it quickly, but when you do it, please take your time. These are basic agreements for the sake of the project that you're making, whether it's about cost splits or payments, communication responsibilities, etc. When you submit a form, you get a thank you page. You pop back over to the portal. I also want to share that there is some important information here on your portal for your reference. So things like your end date for your project, that is a good one to keep an eye on. We do have triggers that automate certain emails and notifications based on that. So it's important to keep it updated. If you are realizing that the end date is not going to be your true end date, we want to hear about that so that we can adjust as needed. Things like your budget total and your amount invoiced and the budget remaining. These are good things that the consultant will keep an eye on, that your Mountain Association staff will keep an eye on, but they're there for transparency for you to look at as well. Same thing with the hours total and the hours used. If you have concerns about those things come up during the course of a project, please bring them to our attention. Next to that, we do have this chatter feature. So if you need to send a message to your consultant, and Mountain Association staff will also use this just to keep things centralized there on the project for communication. That will send a notification by email to everybody that's on the project. And then you have contact information down here at the end. So if you need to reach out by phone or email to one of those people, it automatically pulls that in right there. Now, if you remember that email that I showed you just a minute ago, it said we have first task to complete. When you get new tasks, they will pop up in your email and or text messages to let you know. So for example, this one is letting me know that we have an invoice to approve and giving me a link to go ahead and review it. Now, let's go back and take a look at that. This is the one here, this invoice record. We can get to it from either place, but I'm going to go ahead and click here. Okay, And this is the invoice it wants me to review. We can take a look at the total here, what stage it's at, but most importantly, we want to go ahead and click in the file here, which you can see, and find the title or the red file symbol. Click that, and then it opens up the invoice for us to review. Now, this is the much more important part than reviewing the details on the previous page, because this shows me as the client how much I'm responsible for. So in this case, I'm responsible for $168 of this bill, or 25%. So if I want to download that so I can make sure to pay my consultant, I would go ahead and click download and save that for later. Next up, if that looks good to us, we'll go ahead and approve it so that Mountain Association can pay the Mountain Association portion. Mountain Association will wait until we get client approval generally to pay a consultant, because we want to know that it looks accurate to the client, that the number of hours, there's no mistakes, the number of hours line up, everything lines up. So we'll go ahead and close out of that. Now, there is a red flag here, which is that the invoice total you see is $899.90, but in here, there's only $674.90. And so we know that there's something wrong with this invoice. We're going to go ahead and reject it and put a comment. The invoice totals didn't line up. All right, that's invoices. We can also look at our invoices up here at the top. We don't have any approved so far because we just started this project. But we can see that I've already preloaded some other ones into this project right here, and we can see what stage they're at. This is the one we just denied, but there's also a couple more that are in the queue. And those have already been client reviewed, so that's why they're not popping up as a task for us right now. I'll go ahead and pin this list view so that next time I come here, that's the view I see. And come back over here. All right, so next thing I want to show is reviewing and approving the scope of work. When you meet with a consultant at the very beginning of a project, they're going to work with you to develop a scope of work for that entire project in terms of the hours and the goals that you're going to accomplish. When they write it up, they will submit it in the portal, and you will get to review it right here. In this case, I've just entered a bunch of test info as if I was the consultant, and then you as the client, or I as the client, are reviewing it. And basically, I'm just reviewing to make sure that it lines up with my anticipated goals and outcomes for the project, that this is what I talked about with the consultant. If there is something you disagree with, then we're not going to approve it. We're going to reach back out to the consultant and or to Mountain Association to go ahead and make some edits to this document. But if I approve, check this box. This gives me the consultant rates. These are already contracted with Mountain Association for multiple projects for that consultant, but it's just showing you for your informational purposes what that is. And then you hit submit. If we agree, we hit submit. And that's it for this portion. I'm going to go ahead and pause and come back in just a moment with a couple more portal activities. Okay, so once we get to the end of the project, we've been working with the consultant and approving invoices. along the way. This is a good point for me to mention that we do ask that clients to do that quickly to go ahead and keep our financial processes on track. So that's why you get a text message, an email reminder about that. That is important from our side, both to get the consultants paid and to appropriately use our grant funds in the most efficient way on our end. But yeah, so you've been going through the project, you've reached the end, the consultant submits a final invoice, and if you review and approve that, then a task will pop up for you to review the scope of work one more time at the end of the project to say, yes, all of those things that we said we were going to do, those are what was done. Those are what was completed for me. So that looks like this. Of course, this has my test info in it, but you go ahead and you review it, say, yes, all of this was delivered, check mark, and submit, and that marks the end of the project. Additionally, once you are completed with the project and tied to that end date we talked about earlier, is the project evaluation. So you'll get this in an email form. And we just ask that you fill that out for us to help improve our services, help us know how things are going with the consultant, with your projects, with your experience with us. It's a quick survey. If you have more information in addition to this after your project, you're welcome to reach out to staff. We'd love to hear about it. And just thank you. Thank you for working with Mountain Association.